Elissa Goodman is a renowned nutritionist that gets to join us today. I've followed her for years. She is the cleansing queen. And on Instagram, you get so many great tips from her across the whole span of anything to do with health. But it's her story that makes for such a great conversation today. She's a cancer survivor being diagnosed at 32, among other health scares that have plagued her since she was a child. She lost her husband to cancer in her 40s, and she talks about her journey from complete ignorance when it came to health and also the inner work, the relationship that we have with ourselves, to now being one of the leading experts on both of those things, both the healthcare side, health and nutrition side, as well as just being open about the inner work that's required to love oneself and how critical that is to a healthy life. It's something that you don't hear very often, and it stems from the doctor that helped her when she was first diagnosed with cancer, asking her, "Do you love yourself?" As you can imagine, it is a wide-ranging and beautiful conversation about the inner and outer side of health and the relationship we have with ourselves and health itself. So without further delay, we will get into it with Elissa Goodman. This is the Magic Minds podcast. Elissa, welcome to the Magic Minds podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming.
It's so great to meet you, finally.
Likewise. I'm really looking forward to this conversation because of you have awesome energy.
Thank you.
And that's actually what I want to start with. That's
cool.
Literally the question I had on my mind that I knew, and following you doing research on it, like I know some of the answers perhaps, but
True.
I have a feeling
I give it all away, don't I?
You do. And that's what's so great about following you on Instagram or listening to you in podcast episodes is that you do give it all away. But I was like, I'm just going to start with literally the question on my mind, which is and you're public about this, so I'm not outing you, 64.
Yes.
Which is insane. I'm about to convert a lot of people that are listening to the audio version. They're going to go
look at it.
Go to
Yes.
the YouTube version of the episode.
I know. I feel like the best I've ever felt in my life. And it is kind of weird to say I'm 64 because I don't even remotely feel like I'm 64. So energy, mentally, physically, a little like, I know.
Okay, well, give us the whole breakdown. What produces such amazing energy just on camera, in person for you each day?
That's a very long story.
Please,
but,
I want the long form answer.
It really is like just I am a people person and I'm a liver and I really want to experience this life to the fullest. I've always been like that since I was born. I was always experimenting and driving my parents absolutely crazy with the people I was bringing into my life and sort of like the oddballs that were trying to like kind of get me out of my shell or, get me into a place where I thought differently about life. I wasn't so closed-minded. I was open-minded, and I grew up with a mom who looked at the glass half empty, and I was the glass half full. So I always felt like an oddball because glass half full was much more fun than glass half empty. So I feel like all of those things have stayed with me. I am a total glass half full, and there definitely are emotional traumas that I went through as a kid that were pretty intense. I had a mom who was a narcissist, and sorry to say that word because it's thrown around way too much, right? Because it's all over Instagram and TikTok, this whole narcissism, thing.
You get in an argument with a significant other, you're a narcissist.
Yeah, exactly. But she was a full-on narcissist, like on a scale of 1 to 10 to 20. Wow. And it was really excruciating growing up with someone like that. I had a dad who was very successful, and she was always in competition with me and like never really I never felt safe around her. So I was always looking for, friends and people that could make me feel safe and make me feel like I was not crazy. So all my life I've been a searcher. That's why I searched. And I knew life could get better, and I knew that I wasn't crazy. And I've like searched, consistently with like whatever I've done. And I dive into everything, whether it's anti-aging protocols or, supplements I take when I got cancer. I started going in the supplement route because I didn't feel good. I was diagnosed with cancer at 32. And I think a lot of that was from my emotional, upbringing that was very like compromised, and I didn't feel free in the world. And I feel really confined. Also, I didn't feel good enough, and self-worth was a low self-esteem, self-worth because of growing up with a narcissist. It's tricky to navigate that. So the cancer came along. I was always tired because I was also born with a low white blood cell count. So, in those days, 64 years ago, they didn't know what to do about that. So I always was like sugar, caffeine, trying to make myself feel better with like crappy food as well. And so the combination of the crappy food and also the combination of not feeling worthy and, high self-esteem, living in this environment, I think I had cancer. So that's what kind of culminated. And that's when my first wake up call came, was when, holy shit, and it was an early stage, and the doctors were like, you might die. And I'm like, what? Like, you haven't even staged this cancer yet. So that was kind of crazy. And so that's when
Did you have children at this point yet?
No.
Yeah.
So I was trying to get pregnant, had a bunch of miscarriages, thank God. Was at a job, Vogue magazine, selling advertising marketing for them, which was kind of a nightmare. So the cancer diagnosis was a bit of a reprieve from the bad job. That was the one good thing. But I actually went to one of these doctors that I didn't really want to go to because I had seen 50 million of them. And this guy said to me, are you happy in your life? Do you love what you do? I was married at the time. Do you love your husband? Do you love your job? Do you love where you live? Do you love yourself? And I was like, love myself? No one has ever asked me that. And are you stressed? And all of those things. And
where was this doctor?
He was at St. John's. He was an
Here
oncologist in LA at St. John's. A friend had like found him at a conference, and she's like, you got to go see him. And I'm like, oh, another doctor. And thank the fuck God I went to see him, because my whole world opened up after that. I was like, you mean you can be happy and you can be calm?
And that's related to oncology? What?
And related to cancer and related to your body, being in fight or flight mode and, never having a chance to reset and heal and chill out. Like I just didn't even know what that felt like, because the parents were very successful and, always on the go and very social, and just, it was all about climbing the corporate ladder too in my life. So that was part of it as well. So I didn't know what de-stressing and yoga and meditation, or just kind of like getting into my mindset to be like, what does Elissa want? And that was the coolest experience. So I dove into all that, went into therapy, started doing yoga, started meditation, read every self-help book I could get my hands on. And thank God I had moved from New York to California. So it was pretty cool. And there was a reason why I moved from New York to California, because my husband was from Queens, and he's like, what are we doing? Why are we going west? And I'm like, this was the reason. I think I wanted a better life, a slower life. I wanted to learn these things because New York wasn't doing it for me. So
did you have cancer in New York?
No,
is that where you were?
I got it when I got here.
When you got here.
Yeah.
And can you tell me what Elissa was like at like 15? You said you were always glass half full, but also tired all the time.
Yeah.
What was Elissa like at 15? What was Elissa like at 25? Because people can listen to you now and hear you and watch you on Instagram and get a sense for Elissa now. But what were similar? What were the things that were the same, and what were the things that were different?
At 15, I was struggling like crazy because I just really didn't have, self-worth, self-esteem, like I was saying. I was tired all the time. So I was overcompensating in everything I did, like whether it was food or whether it was sleep or whether it was friendships or work environment or school. I had to work harder, I felt like, than anybody else, and longer hours, because I just didn't feel like I had it in me to do it right. I wanted to do it perfect. So that was really a struggle. The one cool thing at 15, my mom had asthma growing up. So we would go to this health ranch called Rancho La Puerta. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
No? It's in Tecate, Mexico. And at the time, they owned the Golden Door, which is in Escondido, and Rancho La Puerta in Tecate, Mexico. And they were way ahead of their time because it used to be like, I think, a dry out center for,
Like
addicts.
tuberculosis and stuff?
No,
Or
for
like,
addicts.
oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But they grew all their own food, yoga, meditation.
Tuberculosis. You're 64. You're not 99.
Right.
Okay.
No, exactly. So it was more.
But in my head, I was like, Mexico. Oh, dry out. Okay. Yeah.
And drug addicts and things like that. And so this woman bought these two places and she like grew all her own food. There were hikes every day. There were mandatory massages. And my mom found this place and she would go to it for 7 days and you were off the grid with because at those times we didn't have cell phones, but there was one phone for the whole ranch. So everybody was, no communication, no TV. And she'd take these women with her. And for 7 days, like when they got there, they were tired and exhausted and maybe anxious or depressed or so many symptoms. And I was feeling in that same ballpark. And it was weird because they were all in their late 20s and I was 15. And I would watch these women transform in 7 days like crazy, like become happy, become like back into their bodies and into themselves. Like, oh my God, like I am a happy person. I can go out in the world and be good. And I'm not as anxious here as I am out in the world. And they would lose weight and like mentally they felt better. And it was just wild. And so that was what was beautiful about that in regards to, I did get to go with her like 3 or 4 times with my mom to that. And then when I got diagnosed with the cancer, I realized, wow, I could go back to that, like healthy food, juicing,
I've seen this story before.
I've seen this
of
story.
being sick and being well with
so
natural
I was
approach.
lucky because I did that, and I did kind of like tap into those. But at 15, I did want to be home with my friends and partying and doing all those things. And I didn't want to be with these older women at this health ranch with no phone and not talking, to my friends or my boyfriend. So that was a struggle, but I did like take in what I learned there.
Yeah.
So that was beautiful. And at 25, I was in New York, climbing the corporate ladder, living the high life. My 20s were really, really fun. I grew up in Arizona, so it was a little slow, a little, conservative for me. I'm definitely a radical, a little. So New York was where I felt at home. And so it was a lot of partying, it was just fun. It was just like freedom.
I'm sure, from
totally.
a household that sounds like was anything but. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah.
What was your energy levels? Were they always
always low? Always low. Always like playing catch up. And even if I slept 10 hours, I still didn't feel good. So it was a struggle, like most of my life until the diagnosis, really. I mean, when I got the diagnosis, and that's when I started getting into health and nutrition. And that's when things started to like unfold. I went to naturopaths and acupuncture and colonics and did it all. And I started to feel great. And I was like, holy shit, like things can change.
Yeah. That sounds so fascinating that there's this backdrop of wonderment and curiosity of the world, curiosity of just alternative people, alternative medicines, alternative approaches to health, alternative just thinking, then a point of intense pain and the last thing you'd ever design for yourself.
Yes.
But then meeting and jostling, kind of shaking up the system a little bit of like, okay, certain things need to change, or I need to maybe try changing 15 things to find what works, because it's quite literally life or death.
Yes. Yeah.
That does map to, it sounds like it maps to so many different experiences in people's lives where they look back at something they would have never designed for themselves, ends up being a catalyst for some of the biggest blessings, positivity, shifts that they couldn't have also imagined.
I wouldn't take back any of what happened to me, even though it was really a struggle and it was a hard life. And even the cancer diagnosis sucked, but I'm so glad, because it was all these wake up calls along the way. Like, hey girl, wake up this. And I think having like that philosophy of the glass half full, I'm like, life has to be better. I know there's more things out there for me. There's a bigger life out there for me, you know, because like I'm here to do more things. I just always felt that as a kid. I think my dad always said, you know, you could do anything you put your mind to. I remember that. And I was like, shit, that is possible.
Yeah.
And fast forwarding to today, it does feel like that now.
Yeah. It's especially as you pull on that thread, it's like, wow, there's truth to all of these cliches.
Right. And
There's
it
a
was
reason they're cliches.
scary.
Yeah.
Definitely. I won't say that it wasn't easy and it wasn't scary.
Tell me about
Still today, it's still scary.
Okay, I would love to. And then we're going to get into the tactical health pro tips that I know people will want to hear as well. But I find the most fascinating part of the conversations with magical minds that are doing really cool stuff in the world is the inner side of creation, the inner side of the journey that you've been on. Do you mind telling me maybe a trough, like, lowest moment, peak stress moment, either of those, lowest emotional or peak stress moment, when you say it was scary, it was hard to, what goes through your mind in terms of that side of things? Peak stress could have been years ago.
Yeah.
Could have been last Tuesday.
Yeah.
But then also when you say even today, I would love the answer to both of those.
Yeah.
Of what scares you today and what scared you in the past.
You know, the cancer diagnosis was really scary. So, and I did not do everything that they wanted me to do. I went against the grain. I didn't do chemo. I didn't do full radiation. I did half the radiation. And really, I did half the radiation. I wouldn't have done any radiation, but I did it because my friends and family were freaking out on me that I wasn't going to like treat this cancer.
And why weren't you going to do?
Because it was an early stage. It was an early stage. They found one lymph node on my body, on my collarbone. And I just felt like in my intuition and my instincts that I could cure this. I already kind of knew from the doctor from St. John's that if I really worked on my emotional component, ate better, you know, just got my body back in a better place and wasn't living in fight or flight mode, I could heal. But I did do some of the radiation. So that was a very, very low moment. The radiation gave me hypothyroidism, Hashimoto's, insomnia, anxiety, celiac, like all kinds of health issues. And also I had to wait a number of years to get pregnant after doing the radiation. And radiation stays in your body forever. So that's also,
really?
Yes, for a long, I don't think it ever goes away. It probably lessens, but it doesn't ever go away. So, and when they radiated my thyroid, it became small and it shrunk and it never came back to full size. So I always have to deal with that. That was a really crazy low moment. And then I would say that my husband dying at 45, like 43 and a half, he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. So we both had lymphoma. And it was like, holy
Can you explain
shit.
to myself and listeners the difference between the two? And
there are different
can't
strains of lymphoma. So Hodgkin's, there's only one strain. And a lot of times Hodgkin's is sometimes, when it's caught early, easier to heal and get past than non. Non, there's like 2 or 3 different strains of it. There's a fast growing one. There's a slow growing one. There's like large B cell and follicular. And he had more of the fast growing one. And he got diagnosed a little late. He had a bunch of lymph nodes on his neck. And the doctor kept saying, hey, it's just a virus. We're just giving you antibiotics. And that was in October. And then it didn't get diagnosed till March. So by the time March came around, like it had grown and it had, gotten worse. And so then I had 2 girls at the time, 10 and 7 at home. And I was like, shit, like what's going to happen now? I did think he was going to heal. But he was scared, so scared. And his dad died of melanoma when he was 2. So he had that experience, I think, as a kid and in his psyche that cancer could kill you. The thing that I think was lucky for me is I didn't have that in my psyche. I thought I could heal.
You just knew health. He kind of just knew death from cancer.
Yeah, exactly. So I don't know if that is what fast tracked his, dying, but it was a 1.5 years with 2 bone marrow transplants, his own and a donor. And then he got fungal pneumonia and he passed away at 45.
Oh, so it wasn't even the cancer.
Yeah. It was his
the
immune system that was
being shot.
compromised. And I've never heard of doctors doing 2 bone marrow transplants in a year and a half, because one takes you down and you know how long it takes to recover from that, to get your body back and your immune system back. So he just was like, do whatever you got to do to get rid of this cancer. And it kept coming back. So that was really, really terrifying. And I was thinking, what the hell am I going to do now? 2 kids at home, 2 parents who had cancer, and we're living sort of a high life. We were, had a house in Hancock Park. We belonged to a country club. Our kids were at private school. And I'm like, and I wasn't working. He was the one that was working. So that was scary. Like, what? Like, my life's going to change now. And also I was exhausted again from like trying to help him through the year and a half of him trying to save
They
him.
rarely talk about the spouse, the toll it takes on the spouse.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Terrible for the whole family. It's obviously even worse for the patient, but for the spouse that is also trying to juggle so many other things. Here is an additional full-time job.
Yes.
Just logistically, but then also the immense emotional toll.
And the thought of like just during that time, what the girls were going through, and they were in those formidable years, right? It was, before 7, your subconscious is fully downloaded, and that's where they were in those years. And it just had to have been so scary for them. I knew it was scary for me, the whole family. So when he passed away, I just realized, holy crap, I need to do something to help the 3 of us, like get to a place now where we can feel more secure that we're not going to die from cancer, or I'm not going to get sick and leave them, or, we just got to get healthier and stronger so we know that what we can do to really make ourselves, be strong and not get cancer. So I went back to school and got certified in Eastern and Western medicine for 2 years, only because I wanted to help the family, just me and the girls, and like get us back on track and really have, a future. Because again, I'm like, wow, the universe just dealt me a blow, just like my cancer. Now the second blow was his cancer. And basically I remember him saying to me that when he was dying, I was like, holy crap, you're going to leave me and with these 2 girls and everything. And he's like, hey, you're strong enough. You could do this. You can. I would not be leaving you at the end there. Like, if you weren't strong enough to like take care of these girls, I know you can do it. And that was probably one of the most beautiful things that I ever heard, because I was like, okay, I could do this again, So again, looking at the glass half full, I was like, I'm going to fucking do this and I'm going to rock it. Went back to school, did it, felt better, got back, just got our lives back together, and started doing nutrition, and started working at doing cleanse programs for restaurants when I graduated, which is not something I ever thought I was going to do, because I was like, I don't even know what a cleanse is. And so Cafe Gratitude and M Cafe and Erewhon, and I did some stuff for Earth Bar, all the beautiful, healthy places here in LA.
Right.
And it was really fun. And I was hand-holding these people during their 5-day program and finding out what their ailments were, and like investigating with books and naturopaths and, functional doctors or general practitioners. And I absolutely loved it. And I'm like, I could help these people. Like,
Right.
This is cool. So like,
Talk about it. Energizing. Just energized by the fact that waking up each morning feeling like I can help people.
I can help people.
have the
Like, it gave me my, spark back. And it also was, maybe that was what was supposed to happen all along for me, like all of these things that have, all my health issues was to like, I've had so many different health issues. And then I got insomnia like 5 years ago, and I tried everything I could to figure out all the herbal remedies, just everything to figure out how to get sleeping. And I ended up doing a plant medicine journey at that time with a friend. And that first plant medicine journey was so...
And what was it with? I've talked about ayahuasca on this
psilocybin
podcast before. Okay, cool.
Yeah. And that journey showed me how hard I was on myself, what a perfectionist I was, how scared I was that something was going to happen to me and I was going to get cancer or some other illness was going to come and take me and my girls were going to be left without any parents. And then I also thought something was going to happen to them because of our illnesses. And like I saw all of these things unfolding, how I was still living in fear, like on a scale of 1 to 10 was a 10. I was like, holy crap, like no wonder I can't sleep. I hit the wall. Like I just was working.
Would your conscious self had noticed that? Okay, yeah, I am working through fear each day.
No. I didn't know how fear-based I was until I did that journey. And then I got to like release the fear and realize everything is going to be okay. I'm going to be okay. They're going to be okay. Like life can be really great. And when I released that viscerally from my body, then I was like, oh my God, life is beautiful. Like, and also being in a calm, I've never been in a calm state. Even when that doctor said to me, we need to get you in a calm state. I meditated, I did yoga. I still never got to that calm place until I did the plant medicine journey. And then I was like, this is what calm is. And then I got hooked. I was like, oh my God, this is what I want. Is to be just feeling really centered and okay with myself. And the biggest thing that came from that was my friend said to me in that journey, do you love yourself? And that's what the doctor said that time when I was sick. And I was like, I don't love myself. I don't. I'm hard on myself. I'm really critical. Like, no. And then we worked on that. Like, what does self-love look like? It's not, I always thought it was ego-based. Self-love is about like, oh, I got a big ego. And, that's what I was taught growing up. But self-love was about self-preservation. And I'm like, okay, and that's when everything changed for me. Like my life totally changed.
Do you love yourself now?
I love myself now. Yes, I do. I love what I do. I love me. I love, what I can offer people. Yeah, it's pretty cool to have that feeling.
Especially in the contrast of so much of life without that feeling.
Yeah, I know.
Would you have consciously known that? If you subconsciously had so much fear, but consciously wasn't aware of it, were you subconsciously not in love with yourself, or were you consciously aware, like, no, I know my inner voice, my inner self does not love myself?
That is $1 million question because I think both. Yeah, it had to be. I knew that I was really hard on myself. That's why I pushed myself so hard. And I was a perfectionist. And that self-worth, self-esteem issue was still there, like underlying, still lurking. So I think that, that was definitely there consciously and subconsciously. But what was so beautiful was to really look at it subconsciously and to look how much it was destroying me. It was affecting my sleep. It was affecting my relationships. It was affecting my work. It was affecting my relationship with my daughters. No one wants to be around someone who's like very uptight and perfectionist and like nothing's ever good enough, and that's when I finally like took an exhale and was like, okay, like I want relationships. I want connection. I want, even with my clients, I want them to relate to me. Like I felt like that wasn't happening. And then once I saw all of that, then, then everything changed with the clients. My relationship with my girls changed. My relationship with my partner changed. I started sleeping.
Yeah. Tell me about, we have 3 daughters. And so it's a conversation that happens often in our household where it's just like, are they going to be our friends when we're all like, are we going to toe that incredibly fine line between their guides, parents, teachers, and also friends? Will we stay close, or is that just a necessary collateral damage to be that parent, teacher, guide?
Yeah.
How did your children say anything to you during these shifts?
Oh my God. Well, before they were like, didn't want to be around me. And also,
how long ago was this?
this was 4 years ago, 4 or 5 years ago. And they really were, I was driving them crazy. Also, I was so like obsessed with the nutrition thing. Like I'd go to a restaurant and like, is your chicken organic? Is your salmon wild? Like, do you have gluten-free pasta? Like years ago, they didn't serve a lot of this stuff. We're so aware of it now, but they would be like, what the hell are you doing, Mom? I take sugar out of the house. They'd go get sugar elsewhere like crazy. They craved it. Like I was trying to be good and then I was doing it at extreme. So I would tell parents, don't do that. Just like have them have what they want, but try to like serve them healthy food too so they get to like it. But I was driving them crazy. And when they would eat things, I'd be like, you're really eating that? Why are you doing that? So now after I did the journeys, I was like, okay, let's let them have their life and be who they are and appreciate them and their story and, their path. But I didn't. I thought I had to control them. I thought, I had to be the parent.
And out of fear or love of like, hey, I know how badly this can go wrong if we don't do this right.
Yes.
So everybody, we have to do it perfectly right out of just that subconscious programming of probably fear as well as the conscious and subconscious attachment and love you have for them. But just seems like manifesting itself in you talked about perfectionism in other conversations as well.
Right.
Manifesting itself in just such a unhealthy side of that perfectionism. So how did you know that there was a shift within those relationship with them outside of what you were feeling? Did they ever say anything?
They did. They were really happy that I did the journeys. They still do because I still do some of them because other things have happened in my life as well where I've needed to. But they just love because I'm definitely someone who wants to meet someone at their level. I'm not above. I'm not below. I want to know what's going on with them. I want to know what's affecting them. That's what I love about my clients. Like, what's going on for you emotionally? And do you love yourself? And like, what's going on in your relationship and what's going on at home with your kids? Like, that is the crux of why we're unhealthy. Don't you think? I mean, like when our environment is toxic, we do get unhealthy. So I've learned that with like my consultations is like, I love getting to know like, what's working for you and what isn't working for you. So it's the same with the girls and my friends, like, hey, what is working for you and what's not working for you with me? And they tell me now. It's a very open dialogue, sometimes too open.
Yeah, tell me if you wouldn't mind sharing with people. I think it's the thing that people love so much about these conversations. I know it's my favorite aspect that I was telling you right before we hit record is these depths of honesty that you're willing to go to. But that seems really scary. It's just opening up dialogue, which probably I would imagine takes a couple times to let people know, no, really, I'm open to hear. What were some of the things that you heard?
They just told me like, hey, I don't like the way you're acting. I don't like what you're saying. I don't like what you're doing. Even with the things I was doing in work, or what I was putting on social media or just,
Was that crushing at times?
It was absolutely crushing. It was just like my ego just got crumbled. And I just recently broke up with my 15-year relationship with my fiance. And, they're very close to him. And, some of the things that were going on with that, they're just like, Mom, you got to chill out, this is what's happening for us. Like, you got to see the other side of the story. And I'm like, you're right. You're so right. Like, this is not all about me. And I'm so glad that I have them in my life because they're making me a better person. They're making me have boundaries. They're making me realize that, what? Like I said earlier, everybody has their own path. My path is different from their path. And I want them to learn from their path.
Right.
Like I really want, and I want to be there to be supportive for them. I want them to come to me and be like, hey, this isn't working. I didn't have a mom for me to do that or a dad because they were too busy. My dad was too busy. My mom just didn't want to hear from me. And then my dad died 6 years ago. So, I want them to like have a safety net somehow to be able to come to me. And they were constantly like, even at dinners or whatever, like, you just said the wrong thing. Like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm mortified. Seriously. Cause I always got mortified when people would say, you fucked up.
Right.
But now
Especially if like your childhood programming is like, if you're not perfect, the love
Oh,
is very conditional and it will be taken away if you're not perfect. So if you
100%.
fuck up on anything, even at 51, you're like, oh, the most foundational primal love
Yeah.
that I'm searching for will be taken away.
And that's what it has come from it all. In the last years, it's just like, I love them with all my heart and soul. They're my rock stars. I look up to them. So I don't want to do stuff that, disturbs them. That if I feel like, hey, I know I'm going to like kind of fuck this up with them. So I really love the fact now that they tell me. And when they don't tell me, I'm mad. When they hold back and they don't tell me, because even my friends, I'm like, hey, tell me what I did that pissed you off. Or even a client, did I do something that didn't follow through for you? Or, I really want to know so I can be a better person.
That's, I've actually never talked about this in 4 years of podcasting. I've never talked about this with someone of receiving personal feedback. I would love to ask you, what's the right way of approaching that? And, or said another way, what would a 35-year-old Elissa, super smart, super sharp, seen a lot. What would 35-year-old Elissa have done to seek feedback or not seek feedback? Had gone around that topic of feedback. And what does today 64-year-old Elissa do? And maybe even from the outside, it looks similar perhaps, but like what's happening internally and how does it look logistically?
The 35-year-old doesn't look good at all. Like, it would be, making excuses for what I did. Absolutely. Avoiding the situation, avoiding the people, and not confronting it. And then being like, then those people didn't want to be around me.
Yeah.
So
that's those people, they're wrong, or
that's their fault.
Yeah.
It's their
I can't
problem.
believe they said that to me.
Right. It was like excruciating that looking back at that 35-year-old. I don't love that. I don't like looking at that 35-year-old. I felt horrible. In that time, I pushed people away. It was awful. And today, this person today, just knows that I'm going to fuck up and that I do like the connection is so crucial for me that, and the love that I feel for them and my, not just my girls, but my friends or people in my life. And I want to know where I stand. And also I want to grow, cause I feel like there's so much more in life for me. Like I just like really have opened up and started a whole new life for myself again at 64 and now single and trying to figure it out as well. Like, what do I want for the next phase of my life? And I do want so much connection. And I think in order to have that, it has to be honesty. And I have to be able to like, take the good with the bad and like have people tell me, I don't like this, or I like this, or, it definitely feels like I've come a long way. Thank God. And I just feel really lucky, grateful, lucky, absolutely just crazy in the regards of what the future holds.
It's
because of all this work.
Right. And like what you get on the other side, the price of that 2 or 3 days of discomfort, maybe internal excuses, or they're only seeing that part of it. But 3 days after digesting it, then it's like your peripheral vision grows by 20%.
Yeah.
30%. Who wouldn't want more vision, more clarity?
Yeah.
And yet it comes with some pain. That even the word for years there. So in my 20s, I was running different companies, and then I would have 360-degree feedback sessions and like really well done, professionally administered feedback sessions from other executives by executive coaches and things like that. And it got to the point where I would have PTSD just hearing the word feedback. Like, this is just going to be so painful to hear. Now I'm going to have to factor in like, okay, now I've got to do this for this person and this is like the 12th unique thing I need to do for this 12th different person that wants to hear communication this way. And there are some shortcomings to just, I don't know, always getting feedback from people that want you to do certain things when they work for you. But it did open up. It's like eat a bit of poison each day and then you become immune to it, to where then, I don't know, the 7th time, it's like, oh, there's nothing I haven't said to myself in the mirror or heard someone say that. And if there is something new, you crave it. You're like, oh, I didn't hear that before. But I remember the most painful part when I had to think about, why is this so painful? It's the feedback itself, but then it rocks the most fundamental thing about our perspective, is that it tells you your perspective is wrong.
Yeah.
Limited, missing something, blind to something big. That's more painful than like realizing like, oh, the tone is off. That's something to fix.
Yeah.
But then to be told like, hey, you approach each day thinking you know what's going on, you know what's up. And you do not.
Do not. Right.
That's like, no, I can't handle that feedback, because what can I trust now?
Yeah.
And then the default goes from, I know what's up, to the default being like, I have no idea what's up so much of the time.
Right. Right. I know. I just, like I was telling you earlier, I just did another plant medicine journey like 3 weeks ago. And it was probably one of the best experiences of my life. I covered my entire life in this whole day I was with this person. And just like you're saying, I was like, wait, like I did that and that wasn't right for me. And like my whole base of how I had built my life and felt like I knew what I was doing crumbled. And it was...
Isn't that such a healthy thing especially to happen internally, instead of telling you, hey, these 14 things, totally wrong. Instead, it's like some part of you internally is like, without a shadow of doubt, those 14 things, totally wrong.
We're wrong. Yep. Yeah.
But keep going on that experience.
No, and
what
it was like my foundation crumbled. And then I was like, oh, but like, this is what I should have done. And this is what I want to do. And like, it all becomes so clear. We talked about before the podcast, your instincts and your intuition is what I try to talk to my clients about. And, is so right on, always knows what is good for us personally. Maybe not for someone else, but for us. And then like during this journey, when I realized, oh man, I just had no clue that I was doing what I was doing. And then my instincts kicked in and went like, okay, that's why I did that. And then this is what I'm going to do moving forward. And it's just such a beautiful experience for your internal body and instincts and intuition to really know, like without a shadow of a doubt, this is what I want. This is what's going to happen, And also things might disturb people on the outside world when I do them. But again, thank God I have that awareness that I can also say, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And I just want to let you know, hopefully this won't hurt you and feel bad, but this is how I'm going to proceed and I'm going to try to do the best I can. But I think it's just communication and, honoring other people's feelings. But most importantly, honoring my feelings too, because I would step around things and not honor my feelings. And then things would get like,
could you give an example? I'm sure there are listeners that, especially, so you grew up in Arizona, I grew up in Texas. There are listeners that might be outside of the coastal openness to plant medicine that are thinking like, what's an example of something that someone might go through or think through, have clarity on? What's something that from 3 weeks ago, when you say one of the best experiences?
So there were so many, but the one thing I will tell you is that my husband died 18 years ago, and I thought I was responsible for his death in this journey that I experienced. I was like, during the journey with the mushrooms, I'm like, I think I was responsible. Like I wasn't there for him enough, like I didn't really, I didn't protect him. I didn't support him enough. Like, all the things that I just felt like I didn't do enough of for him, thinking that I was superhuman, that I could save this man. So the person I was doing the journey with said, okay, let's bring him in. Like, let's find out if you are responsible for his death. I've been holding on to that for 18 years.
Was that conscious or just
unconscious, I think, or maybe
Yeah.
it was a little of both, but again, maybe everything's a little of both, but I
Yeah.
just didn't want to tap into it. And we brought him in and he's like, hell no, you're not responsible. And he was telling me what happened and who was responsible and all of that. And I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe I've been holding on to this feeling. And that's what happens to us, you know?
Right.
We have these things, these traumas that happen in our life if we're a kid or old, even older. I was like 45 when this happened. And I thought I was aware enough to like have a conscious, you know, realization of what happened and what didn't happen. But still, internally, I felt like I was responsible. And that was probably so crazy profound that I got to release that and feel like that lightness. I think my shoulders were like had this heaviness on them of like, oh, I'm like not realizing how much.
Right.
And I think when we weigh ourselves down with these traumas and these subconscious thoughts that are not serving us anymore, we're not that good to the outside world. We're not good to ourselves. We're not good to like what I do for a living. Like I really love helping people get healthy and get beyond their fears and get beyond any kind of health issue that they might have. And that is something that I just am so obsessed with. Even on the journey, this might sound so wacky and this is so LA,
please.
but I felt like I was a fairy, like going around the whole entire world. Just I had this fairy wand. I was like lighting up all the houses. Okay, you're going to be healthy. You're going to be healthy. This is good. Your house is going to light up. Their houses were all dark. Then all the houses lit up. And I was like, holy crap. Like that is so cool.
Right.
People can be healthy and happy and, you know, just, and have the lives they want. And that's what I want for everyone. So this, you know, these things that were weighing me down weren't allowing me to do that.
Yeah. It is so interesting that we, especially when it gets to our emotional side of things, we feel like if we can't articulate it, then it's not there. If we're not seeing it each day, then it's not there. But we evolved for 2 million years before we discovered language. What we're feeling, how we're perceiving the world, how we're interacting with those around us, the world around us, with ourselves, predates language to such a degree that language has so little to do with it. If anything, if you have a way to put it into words,
right,
or if you can even say it on a podcast, or if you can
yeah,
have a visual of just that, like just trying to even just in 30 seconds, try to connect. You're wired to want to heal. And yet there's someone that you love more than anything that you may not have, not only not healed, but carrying the guilt of like, I'm trying to heal people all day long. And yet the person the closest to me, I couldn't heal. I failed. Perfectionism of like, that's the one thing I cannot do is fail.
Totally.
And the one thing I cannot do more than anything else is fail. And the thing that I'm preternaturally wired to do. And even the visual of light, instead of like, it's not in, and I do want to talk about the cleanses and the modalities, but it's not in the powder, the cleanse, the juice.
Right. No,
it's the
supplements.
Light. Yeah. It's not, do you light them up because of just what you're saying of your journey being such an internal narrative, internal dynamic, relational, so much more than a morning ritual. So that's so cool and powerful to just see it as a visual of like, I'm lighting these homes.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because it's like, I love the supplements. I love food. I love all the modalities that are out there. As we know, there's like so many these days that are available to us. But they're not going to work unless, you know, we really believe they're going to work. Right? Like we need to believe in ourselves. We need to believe we can heal. We need to believe that we can get better. We need to believe that we're able to have a bigger life and a better life. And I could give you great supplements and, great food on my cleanses and, make you feel better for a short term. But the long haul is all about like you feeling good about yourself.
It's like delivering the best steel to a factory that can't do anything with it or doesn't do much, or delivering the marble to Michelangelo that has, hands tied behind his back.
Yeah.
What does...
You can't make a sculpture.
Right. What, okay, so on the, God, we could spend 2 hours on that stuff. And maybe we'll for a part 2, but I love it. Every guest we get to have on, I'm like, we're going to have to do a part 2 and 3 and 4. On the logistical side of things, though, and with even just what you said, if you started the journey, you didn't know what a cleanse was. For listeners that have no idea what a cleanse is, do you mind giving us the 101 on what a cleanse is?
Yeah.
What the EG cleanses are that people can tap into that parallels or pairs well with the shifts in the internal perspective we've talked about?
Cleanses get a bad rap because it's like, I think over the years we've felt like, they were deprivation, starvation mode. When I started doing cleanses, I did see starvation and deprivation, and I saw people crashing all over the place. So my cleanse is about feeding people nutrient-dense food, whole food, anti-inflammatory food, because that's what I saw at the Rancho La Puerta when I was there all those years ago. Like real organic food that your body knows how to digest and metabolize. So for 5 days, I started this cleanse 10 years ago. And for 5 days, I give people like a tonic in the morning that's a probiotic drink to help wake up their digestive juices and also to help sort of replenish their microbiome. And we know how important that is. And then I give them a homemade super seed bar. I give them a huge salad. I give them fermented veggies in the afternoon, a soup for dinner, and a latte after that. And then I also give them enzymes and magnesium. And the enzymes are for people who, because it's plant-based mostly, I also give them a bone broth, a real chicken broth or a vegan broth if you're vegan. I realize that going from animal protein to like plants and also lots of legumes and beans can be disruptive for people's guts. So the digestive enzymes help that. So I give them quite a few to help them get through that period. I just want to teach people that eating, real food and also more food than most people are used to. We give them a lot of food that can be cleansing and nourishing and nurturing.
You said 5 days?
5 days. Yeah, they can reset their body in 5 days. It's wild to watch what happens with these people. Their digestive tract's better, their mental, fatigue has been like lifted. They sleep better. They drop pounds. And even though they're eating more than they normally do, because it's all real food and it's organic. Also, I just wanted people to like have different vegetables. I love vegetables. So I feel we don't get enough vegetables in our diet. I think we need 8 to 10 a day. Some of my clients glaze over their eyes when I say that, like they don't even remotely get that. But our cleanse has way more than that every day. Plus it has 50 different types of vegetables in 5 days. So I just want you to feel like, wow, this can be really invigorating, really nurturing, nourishing. That's the whole approach to it. And because most people don't get 50 different vegetables in 5 days, right?
Right.
So it has been so much fun watching thousands of people, reclaim their life in just 5 days. I mean, that's not a long time.
Oh, that's nothing. When you say, 5 days is truly,
yeah.
Like I feel like especially at 38 with 3 little kids, I'm like, it's trash day every day, it feels like. So
right,
yeah, 5 days is nothing.
5 days is nothing. So no sugar, no processed food, no gluten, no dairy, no bad seed oils. I mean,
but you make it so simple to where it's like, yeah, there are none of these things, but you don't have to think.
You don't have to think. So we deliver it to you twice during the week. It's been going on for 10 years. We now have 4 different cleanses. We have a regular cleanse. We have a gut cleanse, which has more probiotics and more fiber on it. Also a few other things to lower inflammation in the gut. It has activated charcoal. It has holy basil tea, which helps with inflammation. So they do that for 5 days, and that's our gut cleanse. And then we also now have a liquid cleanse. Mostly, we do add some chia pudding if someone wants to eat something, but mostly it's smoothies and tonics and lattes and bone broth. And it's good for just really cleaning out your digestive tract, because our digestive tracts are never empty. We're always digesting food, right? We're always like, they're just never like where we used to be in the old days, where we'd eat and then we'd have to go hunt our food, right? Our digestive tract got empty. So, I mean, that's healthy for us, but having food in our system all the time and possibly fermenting and not really going in and out of the system and not really going to the bathroom every day which has become a huge problem. Once a day is now kind of considered constipated.
Right.
Yeah.
I've heard you mention that before. And like the ideal is going 3 times a day. We're talking number 2, people.
Right. After the digestive cleanse, clients will call me and they're like, I've never gone 3 times in my entire life. You know, they're in their 50s or 60s and they're like, oh my God, this feels so good.
Yeah. I'll tell you, I'll take your word for it, because I can't wait to do the cleanse day. I mean, it's so funny in doing the research for the episode. I'm like just realizing that, because you'll talk about that stuff on socials here and there, but I had never, just even that point, it never really hit me of like, yeah, my digestive, it's always working. It's never like resting, recuperating. It's always taking up so much energy.
It is.
And it is and that ideal of getting to 3 times a day. I'm like, no, I've never done that. Maybe on a bachelor trip to Mexico, not on a health trip.
Not in a healthy way, right?
Because of that.
But I don't want people to get freaked out, because, you know, they don't have to go 3 times. They just really got to go once a day, because that's become a problem. That is just have all kinds of health consequences to that, because I see people not going for days. And 2 would be amazing. So don't feel like you're like bad because you're not going 3.
Yeah. Well, is there anything around that to round out, and where can people find the EG cleanses?
EG cleanse. It's on my website. So it's Elissa Goodman, and they can find everything on there. I also do health tips and nutrition recipes. And then also I have Instagram, of course.
Yes, which is great. I highly recommend people follow Elissa on Instagram. So what is the, if you were to round out that subject of anything that I hadn't asked or prompted to put what's in your mind into listeners' minds, anything else?
Yeah. So one thing I'm doing now, because over COVID, I got trained in functional medicine, and I'm seeing a lot of clients on a daily basis, and I get their blood work from their general practitioners, and the blood work isn't very thorough. So, you know, a lot of people with thyroid issues or metabolic stuff or lipid panels, you know, that don't look so great. And the doctor puts them on certain medications and then they still don't feel well. So I'm not getting to see the whole picture of like what is really going on metabolically with them. You know, not just glucose, but A1C and homocysteine and inflammation and heavy metals and, you know, all kinds of things that can come into play, as well as with the thyroid. You know, do they have Hashimoto's and do they have antibodies? And did someone test their T3, T4, and, you know, just like reverse T3 and things that are also really important. What's going on with their ferritin? Because that's the gas pedal for their T3. I mean, there's so much with the blood work that is so crazy beautiful that I do now thorough panels on all my clients, and it's really cost effective and it doesn't take very long. And I get to see the whole picture, like why they have metabolic dysfunction, why their thyroid isn't working so well, you know, why their inflammation markers are too high. I mean, it is so crazy. Like, I mean, one guy came back recently with HSCRP, which is a C-reactive protein, which is a systemic inflammatory marker that was a 32. Now it's supposed to be below 1. And I was like,
what was he feeling?
He didn't have like symptoms, but this kind of freaked me out because that can be a marker for cancer. So that is a scary, and that is super high. That means your whole body is absolutely inflamed, on fire consistently. So, but it came to find out, thank God, that he had blood work done in April and his markers were fine. And then he had COVID. So COVID sent his numbers to the 32. So
in my blood work, I found out that I was highly, like crazily allergic to eggs, but no symptoms. So I thought, like the number was, it was like the doctor said, you don't want to be above a 3 to 5. That's the allergic range for whatever the part of the test was for eggs, and you're at a 58. And it was basically two things you're allergic to: eggs and dairy. Dairy, you don't want to be above like a 4, and you're at a 4.8. For eggs, you don't want to be above 3. 3 to 5 is what we usually see for people that are allergic. You're at a 58. It's like, but I don't have symptoms. She's like, well, how often do you have eggs? I was like, every morning. She's like, well, you might have just gotten used to all the symptoms, got rid of eggs, and any cold that I get, I feel like it with 3 little ones, I just thought like, oh, we're always sick. Now, since then, it's been like 6 months. Every cold has been a day and a half. My immune system is not just so crazy, heavily taxed every day because of what I was throwing at it.
Right.
And since that experience, I walk around and I'm like, part of me is like, I wonder if I'm over my allergy of eggs, because I do love eggs.
Because you do love them, yeah.
But the much louder voice in my head is like, what are we all allergic to? Just see 100 people during the course of a day. How many of those 100 are allergic to something that they're wildly allergic to? They have no idea, and they're, thinking like, oh, I'm just stressed with work. Or,
they don't feel good.
Little kids, I'm always sick. Little kids. It's like, there could be something else going on.
I just think it's so beautiful to do like once a year, a full panel. Also maybe a nutrient deficiency panel to see exactly what nutrients you're deficient in, instead of just throwing all these supplements at people, like really see what they need. And then also, the allergy testing, the food intolerance testing, like just to see like what is working and what isn't working for you. I mean, because it could be, like you said, eggs aren't bad for you. And for me, it was cashews. I love cashews. I love cashew cheese. I love cashew milk. So for years, I was having all of that. I did notice, like I started to get these swelling under my eyes after I had cashews or milk or all of that. And I was like, oh, something's going on here. And I didn't feel good either, stomach wise, or had brain fog. And then I did take it out of my diet, and haven't had it since. But I feel like you're right. There is so much we don't know in terms of how we could feel better.
Well, and then we end up going to, and there's so much value to things like we said, the inner side, the inner work. But you could go to a therapist for 10 years because you're like, I just feel like shit, low energy. And have had a really troublesome childhood, but 10 years of working through that, it could also be like you're eating something every day that is causing inflammation. I'm sure you saw this as well. Maybe 2 or 3 years ago, the studies and research around about 40% of depressions, 40% of cases of depression, the leading cause was inflammation, just chronic inflammation.
Right.
That once that was treated with anti-inflammatories, the mood disorder would go away. Now 40% is not 100%, but that's a massive, significant contributor to. Maybe it's not just the job. Maybe it's not just, I just got to find a significant other. Once I find a significant other, then We be happy. Yeah.
Right. It is about, like, you're right. There's so many aspects to all of this. And you can't, like, I feel like the doctors haven't been trained to look deeper. That's where, like, I felt like where I came in years ago is just like, I want to get deeper with all this, because I got to get deeper with myself. That doctors just don't know about nutrition and food and supplements and really good blood tests, and really trying to figure out, instead of popping a pill for depression or anxiety, right? Let's see what's going on in your gut. Let's see what foods work for you and not work for you. I mean, all of those things. Or is your environment, what it should be for you?
Well, do you want to end this on a conspiratorial note? So I was chatting with a friend yesterday. His whole job is, this was on Sunday. and we're taking our daughters. He's such a awesome guy. He organized like a bunch of tickets to go see the WNBA team on Sunday. We went with all of our daughters, and I know that his full-time job is to basically find businesses and sectors that are struggling. And I don't even know what that financial approach is called,
Right.
but so I love to ask him like, what is struggling right now, or what do you think is going to struggle? And I did in that basketball game ask him. I was like, is it a moral conundrum to root for? And he said, I was like, do you ever think about that moral conundrum? And he goes, every day. So it is a strange job to root for things to struggle and fail. But I said, what's the sector right now? And he said it as if it was like common knowledge. He goes, well, of course, healthcare. And I said, oh, interesting. I haven't thought about that. What is struggling there? And he said, well, with all of the GLG medications, just everything that everybody's hearing about, Ozempic and that type of medicine. He said, well, in my world, the next door to the second order conversation is, well, about 80% of healthcare costs go to chronic diseases related to obesity and diabetes and overconsumption of food. And so he said, because of that, it's become a fascinating space to say, well, what if these drugs really work, Ozempic and others really work, then what parts of the healthcare system are completely bloated, unnecessary, and going to crater? And in these massive hospital groups where 80% of their revenues are driven from chronic disease.
Yeah.
So then the conversation went to kind of a third order thought experiment, a conversation of like, whoa, so these hospitals, I was just at Cedars-Sinai 3 weeks ago, and right before my appointment, I was like, I can't do this. I can't come here I have a heart condition. And I was like, this is where I'd go every 6 months or so. I was like, no, I can't be. This place feels like a machine. I feel like I'm in like 1980s Detroit car manufacturing plant. The way people were kind of like clocking in, the malaise of everyone there, the average size of everybody there that was working there. This isn't like patients, like the and just a low energy of everything. Even where I pulled up in the Uber, it felt like there was like this huge overpass of like a sky bridge where people would walk over, and it was like dripping down. I was like, I feel like I'm on, if you remember in the movie Rudy, where he like worked in a manufacturing plant, and it was just like dingy. I was like, I feel like I'm in a factory right now. So all of this to say, the third order conversation was like, wow, 80% of that machine, the revenue comes from all of the downstream effects of poor nutrition, diet, and understanding of these things. So it was like, they need people to eat shit. Poorly. Like they'd be 1/5 the size, 1/5 the revenue if people had the information, if we were healthy.
I know. If
we were informed. And this all happened, 2 days ago. I'm thinking through this and chatting it through. He's like, oh yeah, no, doctors, whether the doctors know it or not, the healthcare system does not want people, it would not survive if people were informed.
Right.
And it's not the doctors choosing to only have 12 hours of nutrition, as part of their 12 years of medical school. It's the larger entities that say, no, let's not go there.
Yes. Yeah. No, I mean, it will be fascinating to see what happens in the next years, because the GLP ones, those Ozempic.
GLP, that's what they're
called. They are causing less obesity, better metabolic function. I mean, I'm not against it completely at all. I mean, like, to lower cancer rates and to lower obesity and to lower metabolic dysfunction and diabetes. I mean, it's like a beautiful thing. So someone was just telling me like wildly that airplanes are flying lighter these days.
Oh, no way.
Isn't that wild? Because people are lighter, they don't need as much fuel. That's the positive side to it. But the doctor part and the drugs and, all of the treatments, that's going to be fascinating to see what happens with all of that.
Well, it's the amazing, beautiful trend that is certainly clear is that we are becoming more and more informed. That there is a potential, like you've touched on this before, don't get too stressed about these things, because, freaking out about being unhealthy, that internal stress and agitation can just be replaced by freaking out about eating everything perfectly or doing everything perfectly.
Totally. Yeah.
But it certainly seems the trend line is in such a healthy direction to know about these things because of experts like you talking about and sharing it so openly, so freely. What are the best places to find out? You said ElissaGoodman.com.
Yes, just Instagram and ElissaGoodman.com is really where everything is. So, and yeah, I give so much information on a daily basis and like for free, because I just love really educating people as much as I can and just reaching as many people as possible. So I absolutely feel so blessed that I get to do the cleanses and feed people as well and nourish them and nurture them. And then also do the blood work and like really get down to brass tactics where, they're changing people's lives just by the right supplements and the right modalities to move forward with the right information.
Yeah, especially just the modern miracle of having that information. Yeah. It's not whack-a-mole of like 30 years ago, try removing these things and then maybe we'll get lucky. It's like, no, you can actually know this information.
Yeah.
Well, Elissa, thank you so much for the generosity of time and wisdom on the Magic Minds podcast. So this talk about just lighting up a home, not only this conversation, but also the fact that I get to have these conversations is such a blessing. Thank you. And I look forward to part 2 down the road.
All right. Thank you too. It was such an honor to meet you. And also just be with like-minded people is such a beautiful thing in my life.
Well, you're speaking for the both of us. It is a true blessing. Thank you again.